Hello, heathens.
Hello, Ethan.
We're back.
We're back.
I don't know why 2 weeks feels like so long, but it really does.
It does until like Wednesday night, and then I'm like, oh my God.
It's the same. Sometimes I'm really good about research, and then other times I'm like, what are we doing? When are we doing? We're doing?
You doing well, and we like mixed everything up because Trinity's doing exams this week, so she couldn't be on this podcast with us. So then we switched what we were gonna do, blah blah blah. So we're doing Sumerian gods now, and then we'll see Trinity in 2 weeks, is basically what we're gonna do.
Which works out nicely either way, because it's like we're jumping forward a little bit because we're going to be getting into like a lot of different cultures this year because we really wanted to do little deep dives into them, and it's like kind of like a little taste of what that's going to look like.
Yeah, I have to move this over here, I think.
Left us. I was excited. Today we're obviously, you guys read the title. We're going over Sumerian gods today, and I was excited reading all of this because I just didn't know. It's like one of those things where it's like if you don't already have like an interest in it, you don't normally look it up, right? Like I know quite a bit about Egyptian and Greek gods because well, Egyptian gods were the first ones that I was like freaking hard eyes, star eyes, and awe
Right,
of.
right.
And then Greek gods came shortly after because they kind of like have similar themes in the way of like they're so just cool looking and like
Mm-hmm.
they're just so cool. And also I'm a nerd and I love so funny. Like this is doesn't go with today's podcast, but it's funny because I was thinking about it. During quarantine, obviously Nicole and I couldn't really see each other because we didn't know what that looked like because the world was crazy.
The
But
world was dying.
yeah, and I found this what's it called? Comic, but it's like on it's webtoons and it's like these like people that make their own comics and they can put them on there digitally. And I found this one um called Lore Olympus and it's about Persephone and Hades and it was so good and I like had a timer on when the new one was going to come out and then Nicole and I were talking during quarantine one time and she's like, "Dude, I found this comic. It's so good. And the story's so good." And I was like, "Shut the fuck up." And we were like, "Well, we were like freaking out, geeking out because both of us are
Yeah,
doing this like thing on our own, but at the same
yeah,
around the same time. And it's like stories like that I just love that people take these gods and goddesses and put them into different context stories or like retell their stories in like a modern time. And it's so interesting.
yeah.
And it makes me like researching the Sumerian gods, it was like, damn, some of these gods are really like I'm sure they're all really cool, but for me, some of them I was like, whoa, dude, their stories could be so cool, but we've forgotten about them or they're not as popular, and so then we don't talk about them. And I'm like, oh, this is so cool.
Well, and that's the thing is like, the funny thing about that Laura Lippis is that I just found a book series because I was really trying not to read Court of Rose and Thorns again.
Again.
So I was looking for other stuff, right? So this one kept coming up. It was A Touch of Darkness. Now it's not written well or like Sarah J. Maas. It's fine, right? But the story is about Hades and Persephone. So of course I was like, okay, it's literally almost the same as Laura Liffus. So I don't know if like the book came first and then the comic book came,
Yeah.
or if like I don't know, because it's a touch of darkness and then a touch of ruin. And then I ran out of hours on my Spotify because I wasn't buying it. And
Mm.
I was mad that Spotify put a limitation on my consumption.
I started listening to it when I was getting tattooed last week, and I was like, the whole time I'm sitting there getting tattooed, and I'm so into this story because, of course, it's like you said, all I'm thinking is, I can see it playing out. I literally love that comic so much. Nicole and I bought each other all the books for Christmas, so we
Hmm
had a
hmm
hard copy because we're so obsessed. And I'm sitting there thinking about all of the pictures and it working like a movie, but in her drawings and her artwork from Lore Olympus that I was like, that seems wrong. Something about this is fucky what happened here because not a lot of people know about Lore Olympus and it's
No.
oh, it's so good. But that's
So,
about
yeah,
the same
because
thing.
it's just so, I mean, there are differences. Like, she's changed Laura Olympus. I don't know which one came first. So I'm assuming that A Touch of Darkness came first and Laura Olympus came second, is what I'm assuming.
I'm looking this up
Okay, good.
because I'm like, I have to know. Lore Olympus was published in 2017.
Okay.
And then A Touch of Darkness was published in 2019.
Ooh.
Scarlet Slate Claire, we have questions.
Wow. There's a little rabbit hole we can go down and see what happened there. Because somebody's got to be suing somebody about that.
I mean, heck yeah. Because Rachel Smythe is the creator of Lore Olympus. And
Hmm.
I was going to say, it had to have been around first, I would think, because I found that in quarantine, which was 2020, and I had like 190 or something episodes to read through in the way that I consumed. I way
Absolutely.
that Webtoons works too is like if you want to read the next episode before it's out, you had to like spend some money to buy coins. The way I was like, give me $10 worth. I have to. She's got two episodes out. I have to know what happens next. Like
Absolutely.
my money.
Absolutely. I'm like, yes. I'm like, nope, yep, yep, yep. Give me, give. Um, Interesting. So that's interesting because I was like, is somebody copying us? It's very, like I said, it's very similar.
There's also some themes that were similar in Crescent City comparatively to that book too, that I'm like, what is happening? It feels like a mesh of Lore Olympus and Crescent City.
Yeah, I agree with that too. The more I get into it, the more I'm like, hmm. Because I
Hmm.
read the first one of Crescent City. I didn't read the second one yet, which I don't know why. I know the fact that like her first book's always hard to get into.
Yeah. I I think that also the switch from worlds is really abrupt because you go from like this almost medieval feel to like this like super modern feel and it's so abrupt. And also, I think that the differences in how she wrote Bryce compared to Freya is very open and honest, and you know everything that's going on in her head as she's experiencing it. What I liked that she did with Bryce, though, is you don't know everything. You think you do, but you don't. And then when you find out that you don't, you're like, how did she keep this from us? I thought I knew what was going on.
Right, right. Like there was like, and they hint, like in the first one, they hint, like you go back, you knew something happened with a, motorcycle accident they get little hints of this kind of thing. And then you get the whole story, like you're getting it piece by piece and stuff. And, uh, even like sometimes when an older fairy comes in, she's like, I know who you are. And I'm like, who is she? I don't even know who she is.
Who? Who's who? Who are
Right.
who are we? What? I don't, did I miss something?
And again, how you like prejudge somebody. It's very much of that whole like how you prejudge somebody by either what you heard, thought, or see. And I think that's a really good lesson of like of that because like you do like judge a book by its cover and then like you start reading it and you're like, "Oh, that wasn't the book I thought it was going to be." I found myself many times like going, "Oh,
I think that let us know if you guys want us to start a book club because that's what could be in our Patreon, literally, because the way that we will consume a book and we could all talk about it is pretty intense. It's got to be the right books, but I will
Okay.
consume a book.
Okay, so I found a blast from my past. So you know how much I love Queen of the Dam, right?
Me too.
But I've never read the book.
I have.
And last Thursday I was gonna tattoo and I was telling my tattoo artist, Jay, I was like, we always talk about horror films, and I go, my ultimate favorite is always Queen of the Dam. Like I just love that movie, blah blah blah, right? As I'm telling him this, I it plinks into my head like that's a book. I read books. Like I'm putting all these like things together. Like, no, I read books. I could read the book of Queen of the Dam. I was like, oh,
You know what's so funny is you know how I am with books. Like one of my favorite bookstores we've ever been to is the one in New Orleans, but I almost have a completed first edition series for her Vampire Chronicles and the Queen of the Dam's in that, and I haven't read it.
mm-hmm. Well, and I started with the Queen of the Dam because I wasn't sure if I wanted to read all of them. Now that I'm into Queen of the Dam, I do want to read all of them.
Interview with a Vampire was really good, and I will say the HBO series was verbatim the book.
Okay.
It was so beautifully done that I was like, I literally feel like this is like what I want a series to be. Because, like, literally, per the book was per the show, and I was just like, this is everything I wanted it to be. They're not missing anything. This is so good.
Well, if they do the Queen of the Dam, like how it's written, it's wild. I listened to a 5, 10 minute tantrum of Akasha telling everybody how we're going to get rid of men because they're bad and how the world is going to like bow down to her. And it was, it was like, so she was going to like these small villages. It was just this whole like rhetoric of like how she's a god basically because she's making herself a god because mortals don't know any different, right? So it's very easy for her to step into this god-like uh uh costume.
Mm,
And uh because like from our point of view, she's got immortality from what we know.
right.
She's powerful. She can like burn us without even thinking. Like she's so strong that she could crush our bones with like just trying to give us a simple hug, like stuff like that. So that to us would be godlike, right?
Yes.
So it would be so interesting how like us not knowing not knowing the whole history of a person can make us believe the costume that they put on.
Yes.
But then how she like goes, and I thought it was so poignant from what we are doing right now. Not that I want to get rid of all the men, but I think that's kind of a theme that's going through is, men are bad and evil and like, they start all the wars and they suppress women and they suppress these people and blah, blah, blah. Like, so we've gotten this theme of like men are evil or white men are evil and all that kind of stuff. And it was just interesting to have that conversation, something that was written, I don't know, 10, 20 years ago,
Probably.
30 years ago, maybe longer. And she's having this conversation where she's going to rewrite the world or almost cleanse the world.
Holy shit. She's coming up on that was published in 1988.
Wow.
We're coming up on almost 40 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Holy crap.
It's wild how she's having that conversation now.
That's crazy. Everything recycles, man.
Ugh, girl.
Hell can't be cycled no more.
I also like the way they talk about spirits. So there's a whole thing on, there's these twins that we don't even hear about in the movie, the story of the twins, and they start having these pathetic dreams. And, like they go through all these vampires are coming to Lestat's concerts, and like they're, uh, they're all being drawn and being plagued by these dreams of these redheaded twins, and they don't understand it. They're only getting glimpses and pieces. And so if they did that series verbatim through the book, it would be wild. I'm here for it.
Yeah. I hope
And the
HBO keeps going.
I no, in the AMC? I thought that was AMC.
I think that was on Max.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, I'm talking about the interview with Vampire.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, and I'm pretty sure new series. I don't.
Hmm.
Let's see. It is AMC.
Okay.
It was AMC. Huh. It was well maybe Max and them. I don't know how they have all their stuff.
Well, yeah, you know how that is.
You know
Like,
what I'm saying? I don't know.
uh, yeah, we're all owned by one person, right? Like,
Literally, I'm like, how do y'all decide what's going on? What app? I don't know.
no.
Was good though. Well, that's our book rant.
That's our book rant. That's where we're at today. I will also say that the guy who reads it on Audible almost sounds like Anthony Hopkins, but is not. He's so good.
Okay, I could get with that.
I was like, I like it. It's just it's beautifully written. It
Yeah,
made me think about a lot of things when I was reading it.
I'll have to read that one. I
Hmm.
can't, yeah, the only one I've ever read is Interview with a Vampire. And then I think I've been so caught up on getting the series all collected before I start reading it, and then I get stuck into other books, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Which
That's the whole thing is I was like, all right, I've read this 3 times. Like I can come back to it, obviously. But it was one of those things where it's like, I forgot it was a book. Like, fuck.
I literally have it on that shelf right over there, and I forget it's a book.
Plus, do you remember when we were in New Orleans for the first time together?
Yes.
And we were in front of Anne Rice's house the day she died?
Wild.
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 Anyway, that's all I got. That's all I got.
Love you, Anne Rice. You made some good damn books.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's start talking about what we're actually talking about this week. I will put sorry if you made it this long, but I will make sure to put a disclaimer that if you are here just for the Sumerian gods, skip forward to this part. Oh,
Right.
oh,
So
sorry.
sorry. We ranted a little.
We like books, man. What do you want from us?
This is what we do. Okay, so Sumerian gods. Sumerian gods are the first, I think, recorded gods, deities, religion. It's Mesopotamian, it's Babylonian, it's like when they start saying, like, especially on Game of Thrones, when they were talking about the old gods and the new, like, this is kind of like how I start to think about it too, is like, oh, the Sumerian gods are the old gods, and like the Christian God is the new God, or like the gods that we are uh worshiping now, not just Christian, but Judaism and um Islamic. Yes, those are top three. Those are like the new gods, right? Because now when you go back so far, you can really start to like see the similarities and find the patterns. So it makes you not think of the Bible so much as like end all be all. It expands that horizon of like, oh. This, so, like when we talk about the flood or the building of the Tower of Babel, you're like, oh, but that's only in the Bible because that's all you know, right? So you have this limited view of that particular event, if you will. But then you go back into Samaria, and this happened thousands of years before biblical times. And you see these reoccurrence of like the flood and of like Tower of Babel and the descent to the underworld and like how it crosses with like Egyptian and it goes with Greek gods and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of why we're doing this. Just to like expand it and show you that we were all, not all of us, obviously, but like a lot of our listeners, I would think, assume, and I don't mean to like depick anybody or kick anybody out or exclude anybody, but like from my point of view too, is that I was raised not in a religious place, but I feel like in America we're raised Christian, even if we're not raised in a church per se. We still have these morals that were washed upon us and what we were supposed to like follow.
Mhm.
And now that we're getting into this, it's like you can start to see how that like um it gives less power to like this is right and this is wrong. It becomes more of a gray area for us instead of being like no, the Bible, the Christian Bible is the only one with the flood. And it's like, well, no, that's not true.
Right.
Like for me it was angels. I'm like, why is Archangel Michael in this book and this book and this book? Like, and they don't even like each other, right? Like these three books don't even like each other. They're all separate. They all think they're right. They all like are dominating the world, right? And it's like, wait. Questions like, why do you have the same guy in it?
It reminds me of the movie Heretic.
Yeah,
His
yeah,
monopoly argument, while it was did not have the right intentions behind it, it was
it's
pretty
true.
fucking good. Bravo A24 because there are
Yeah,
it's the same game but different versions.
it is. It is. So that is our intentions on this. So, and what we always employ for our listeners and our followers to like do is think for yourself and be empowered yourself. So, if this intrigues you and you want to go down this rabbit hole and compare, like, do so because this is the first time that you can like, and I don't mean like you have to argue with anybody about whether they're right or wrong or not. That's not what we're here for. What we're here for is enlightening ourselves and understanding ourselves.
Thought provocation.
Right, that's what we're doing. All right, so that being said, all right, so the first god that we have, I'm going to go through these gods and goddesses quickly. Just to when Cassie starts telling us stories, you kind of know who we're talking about and what they represent. So our first god is Anu. He is the god of sky and heaven, the supreme ruler of all the gods. He represents the vast overarching sky and heavens. His domain is the celestial realm. He is associated with authority, kingship, and the cosmic order. His element is air and sky. His symbols are crowned, thrones, and stars. His animal is the bull. Now, this was interesting to me. So, a lot of these guys are animals are with the bull. Now, in the Bible, this made me think about this is that when, like, Moses comes down with his tablets and he's like, how dare you worship this false god? It was a bull. So it was almost like Christianity was also, or this would have been Old Testament stuff, that it was, which I think would be Judaism, right? There's a blurred line between Christianity and Judaism. And I know they don't like to say that, but like,
I'm
it's
not well
weird.
versed enough at this point,
Yeah, I don't
but
know.
I
It
hear
just
what you're
seems like
saying.
that where I'm at right now, that's what it seems like to me in pencil right now. Anyway, so I get confused. So sorry. Um, that's what it reminded me of when their sacred animal is the bull. And a lot of times the bull was sacred because of the upstretching horns, because this is how you would worship God or deity or the divinity.
Hmm.
Celestial bodies were stars and the firmament of the heavens. Um, then we have Enlil, which is the god of air, wind, storms, and kingship, both creator and destroyer. He gives blessings and he takes them away. He is the Lord of wind and storm. He is the element of air and wind. The symbols are the horned crown, the scepters, the lightning bolt, the storms. The sacred animal is the bull and the lion. The third god that we have is Enki. Enki is the god of water, wisdom, magic, and creation. He is the benevolent deity. So already we have our three where we have the ultimate god, and then we have two, one which is more projective and one that was more receptive. He is the god of water, wisdom, and magic. His element is water, especially fresh water. His big thing was fresh water because that was what nurtured life. Um, the symbol I found was fascinating was the goatfish, Capricorn, flowing waters, and reeds. And the sacred animal, of course, is goat, fish, and snake. The first time that we see a goddess, it is uh, Inanna or Ishtar. They kind of represent the same. Also, I've seen this depiction of her where she holds a circle and a rod in both hands. She has owl-like feet or like bird-like talons, and she's uh, I think sometimes it's even depicted as Lilith. So we have to be careful sometimes because sometimes our like goddess and gods get into like somebody says this is Lilith when really it's Ishtar, which I don't know. I don't know if you have to be careful about that, but like I just like to know the differences of it. Anyway, for my own personal gain. Um, she is the goddess of love, beauty, war, and fertility. The queen of the heavens and the goddess of love, divine feminine, fierce warrior, and associated with Venus. So her elements are earth and fire. Her celestial body is Venus, the morning and the evening star. She's depicted by an eight-pointed star, lion, rosette, and a reed doorpost. Sacred animal again is lion and bull. And then we have the god of the moon, the lord of time, which is Nana, also depicted as sin. Um, Element is water and air, especially associated with the night sky and tides. Celestial body is moon and all phases. The symbol is the crescent moon, bull, staff, and the reed bow, a lion and bull. And then we have the sun god, Utu or Shemesh, the god of the sun, justice and truth. This is fire and light. Celestial body is the sun disk, the ray of light, the justice scales, and the saw, the symbol of cutting through deceit, the sacred animal of lion and bull. So I want to make a quick mention of the underworld gods. So we have Nargal, which is the god of the underworld, war and plague, and then Aishkigal, the goddess of the underworld and the dead. Um, and I think that's all. There's more in here, but that's what we got.
Good way, friend. So, what I want to talk about is Sumerians first and like kind of like how this all what we know about them because I found this super interesting because the Sumerian mythology is distinguished by the pantheon of the gods because they were like as far as we know they were the first ones to write the religion down. And a lot of their gods, obviously, as Nicole just had said, embody a lot of elements of the natural world and society. And they reflected like their deep connections with their environment and their social structures.
Mhm.
And Sumerian myths are deeply intertwined with like their cosmology as well. And like there was the rituals of their daily life to the point that I think Enlil was the god of air, right? They would believe
Yep.
that like wind moving was his breath. So it was having this harmony of like the mundane and then like giving themselves excitement for like, the divine.
Mhm.
But if you couldn't tell from a lot of what Nicole had said already about the gods, is that Sumerian mythology has profoundly influenced later cultures and like our modern understanding of ancient mythologies too. You will see a lot of similarities, which we'll go into some in a little bit.
Mhm.
But the Sumerians were one of the earliest civilizations in human history. They were living in what is now southern Iraq, in a region known as Mesopotamia, which is Greek. It's a Greek word for the land between the rivers because it was between the Tigris and the Euphrates. And their cities like Ur, Ur, it's YU. I wanted to also put a disclaimer in. I don't speak
Sumerian.
Sumerian, so I'm not really sure. This is my very broken English way of pronouncing. So they had cities like Uruk and Urdu, and those rose around 4500 BCE, which if we remember, we went over what BCE is. That is before the Common Era, meaning before year one. So that's over 6,000 years ago that all of this information is coming from, which to me, like,
It blows my mind.
but blows my fucking mind. Because even just thinking like the 90s, people think the 90s were forever ago. Forever ago. And I'm like, how about 40, basically negative 400, 4,500 years? Meaning like 4,500 years before year one.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy to think of like in the 19, like I thought about this the other day that there were people around in 1400s, right? And that's when Queen Elizabeth was alive. And we got all of this, like, you know, magic and like all that stuff, right? Like 1400s. Like that was, and that's so, how did we survive? Do you know, like that's the thing is I'm always surprised how much, as delicate as we think we fucking are, we've survived so much.
We're only delicate mentally, in my opinion. And I don't mean this as a hit to humans, because
I
obviously I am one.
agree.
But I get very, very stuff like that when you really let it sink in. It makes you really aware of how delicately minded we are now. Do you know how many end of the
Yes.
worlds they've probably almost experienced in over 6,000 years?
Oh my God. I mean, every time the world was ending. Well, they thought that Jesus was coming back since the before the Bible was made.
Yeah.
When Paul was writing his letters, he was expected before he died to see Jesus again, to come
Yes.
back. Like that's how long.
And so, like, it also makes me realize how old these gods are. When Nicole's
Yeah,
saying we have okay, Game of Thrones, great example, right? The old gods, the new gods. The old gods have been here for over 6,000 years. I can't comprehend.
can't. I cannot comprehend.
So Sumerians were also considered the first people to create a written language called cuneiform, where they etched it into clay tablets.
Hmm.
Fascinating. They built city-states, developed complex laws, they had calendars, and they practiced astrology. Astrology has been around for so long. Anyways, I had to get that out. They were the first that we know to write down the religious stories, which make their gods the earliest recorded deities in human history. So again, as far as we know,
Yeah, to this point, like,
at this point in like yeah, human history, these are the first recorded gods and the first idea of deities.
right.
So their myths laid the groundwork for much of what came later, and we'll get into some of these later, but like the story of Inanna's descent to the underworld echoes later tales like Persephone in Greek mythology and even Christian themes of death and rebirth.
Hmm.
Uh, the flood story, like Nicole had said, is called the myth of Zuisurda, Surdara. In the earlier is the earliest version of Noah's Ark story, and then many Sumerian gods were absorbed and renamed by Akkadian Babylonians and Assyrians as well.
Hmm. Speaking of rename, we got to be careful because a lot of times gods were named demons by the Christian faith as well. And Baal is one of the first demons in the uh, what is it? The Grimoire of Solomon, where he was a god.
I love that you say that because I had that too, that their stories were like repackaged by dominant empires. So think about like the Romans. Like the Romans were a dominant empire. They came in, they fucking took over, and it was like, okay, now we have a new religion. Like we're doing everything new, right? We kind of talked about that when we talked about Plato as well. Like all
Hmm.
everything that could happen with that. And so like a lot of the Abrahamic religions, either they flatten these demons or demons. Wow. I just condensed everything. They either flatten these gods and goddesses or they demonize them.
Right.
And it's like fascinating because it's like, geez, when you really start looking into all of this stuff, it makes you realize like the filters thing, man. Filters came later.
Well, because think about this. If I told you that you're working with a demon, right? Like if I made that law and then you're working with this demon, then I have the right to persecute you
Yep.
so I can control you, right?
Hmm.
Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah,
Hmm.
I mean there's just a lot of even it going into a lot of these stories and stuff and like a lot of other gods and goddess that were like some like must mentions too. It's crazy because like with the amount of studying that Nicole and I have done now, I'm able to even correlate between things that I had just learned about, which we'll get into later of our correlations that we have, but like it's super fascinating when you start like breaking it down and you have an open range of being able to pull from different things and be like, oh my God, they're both squares. Look at that.
Yeah.
They're just
Yeah.
different colors. Crazy.
They're just different colors.
Right? I think about it like so simply and how kids do like block things or they put them in the same color and the same, and I'm like,
Hmm.
it's literally the same thing. Okay, so Sumerians saw the world as a balance between chaos and order, ruled by divine forces, and their gods weren't just distant creators, they were deeply involved in everyday life, crops, fertility, storms, and kingship even.
Hmm.
And humans believed that they were created to serve the gods, do their labor, and maintain temples, and then it was a divine economy. So like they were happy to do it, which we'll get into the story of like human creation too, because I found that really interesting because I was like, huh. But the unfortunate part about the Sumerian gods and like their language is their language died out thousands of years ago, and so much of what we know comes from fragmented tablets, and mo like modern archaeology is still trying to translate Sumerian texts, and they've been doing it pretty consistently for the past 150 years.
Hmm.
So only 150 years have we been trying to translate a text from over 6,000 years ago. That's like a that's like a freaking it's
It's
like
like
having
a
a
an
hundred
hour.
yeah, it's like having a 600 word essay you need to write and you have a period.
Right.
And you're like, that's good, right? It's a good start, right?
I got it. I got it.
Right? So, now Nicole went over the three big gods, and I have some stories behind them with like their personalities too. Um, because I thought it was pretty interesting having their personalities, like what we believed that they thought their personalities were like to then their stories.
Mm-hmm.
So or Anu, the god of the sky, his personality type has been described as distant, dignified, and he rarely interferes directly. He's more of like a cosmic CEO than like a hands-on manager, right?
Right, right.
And Enlil, before we get into the stories, I'll give you their personalities. Enlil is more considered to be hot-headed and authoritative, sometimes merciless because he's like the one that caused the flood to wipe out humanity, which I'll tell you that story in a second as well. And he's like this like chief enforcer of like the divine will, right? Like he separates heaven and earth and sets the boundaries and like calls the shots on day-to-day stuff. So like he's like the like divine power force on Earth. So
Mm-hmm.
like the general enforcer of On. And then I love this comparison. Enki, which was the god of water, right? Wisdom, creation, magic, all that stuff Nicole had said. He's like the clever one of the trio. In like
Mm-hmm.
he's the one that creates humans from clay and he teaches civilization and he often saves humanity from like the harshness of the gods, but his personality is like that of a trickster adjacent god. So
Mm-hmm.
like he's kind and wise and witty, but he also can be a trickster. So I saw this comparison and I love it. Think of Loki, but way more benevolent.
Yeah, like trick you to do good kind of thing.
Yes. And I was like, okay, I love that.
I like that.
So the stories I have behind them is the first one, Anu, Sky Daddy. Anu was the original king of the gods. So like if you know Greek mythology, you're thinking like Zeus, right? So like Anu was the original king of the gods and the ruler of the heavens and the source of like all divine authority. But eventually he passed the power down to Enlil, who is his son. And it wasn't like a war or like a betrayal of it being passed. It was more like a cosmic delegation, like you're doing this from now on. And he just kind of remained above and he rarely interfered while Enlil took over active rulership of Earth and in the heavens.
Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of like I think about it made me think a lot about the movies of like Thor, of like where
Yeah.
like Thor was the one out doing all this stuff, Loki's doing all this stuff, and then their dad's just like kind of there. He does make
Yeah.
he does make
He's
rumblings sometimes, but most of the time
yeah.
not enforcing shit. He's just like there with his staff.
He's like, I'm over here doing big things, whatever. Well, because if you think about it, it's if Anu is space, doesn't really influence us here on Earth, right? Where Enlil is like our atmosphere,
Yes.
air, weather, all that stuff, right? Where like Inky would be the seas,
Yeah,
clearly,
like the ether on
right?
Earth, I guess.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
if you
Like
think
the
about it in
energy.
layers,
Yeah.
yes. Well, and what's cool about this story too is it really mirrors the idea of a distant creator stepping back, which we've heard
Mm-hmm.
a million and one times in almost every freaking religion.
Mm-hmm.
It's like God in the early Gnostic or deist traditions, like creating the world and then letting it run.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, my next one about Enlil is the flood in humanity's trials. The story goes that humans were too fucking loud, like literally too loud, and it pissed him off, and their noise was disturbing his divine peace. So he decided to wipe them all out with a flood. But this is where Enki comes in, and he wasn't down with it, so he was like warning the man Zeus Sudra, and telling him like build a giant boat, and then he survives, and Enlil is furious, but eventually relents and allows humanity to continue. Enlil
He's
is like
like, fine.
He's like, you guys are too fucking loud. You're done. You're gone. He's like, dude, we can't do that. We can't do that. He's like, I don't give a care. I don't give a fuck. I'm flooding it. They're done. And then he's like, fine, whatever. I guess they survived. It's fine.
I did it. That's what happened. It's fine.
It's whatever. Okay, I'm over it now. Well, and why it's cool is that this is the oldest flood myth recorded, which is a direct predecessor to Noah's Ark. And it shows Enlil as like a strict, just and driven God, but one who could be reasoned with eventually. It's like your mom gets really pissed at you for doing something right, but then, or like your dad. I feel like it's more like your dad gets really mad at you for doing something because like your dad's got like these rules that he's got to be a good dad and he can't let you get away with it. But your mom's over there like, okay, but like we kind of need to think about this a little bit more. And your dad's like, no,
Right.
no, I won't hear it. She did something bad. No. But then your mom's like, go to your room, I'll figure it out. I'm gonna talk to your dad. And
Oh,
then
right.
he's back and he's like, I guess it's fine. I don't know. Me and
Well,
your mom talked about it. It's fine.
well, yeah, because that's the whole thing is you're like, no, you did something bad. And then you're like, yeah, but you also did the same thing when you were young. You were too loud and blah, 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 right? Like, that's where the reason and the trickery comes in because you have to show somebody that you're just the same. You're the same thing.
Right. And it's also a good reflection of how Sumerians believed in like chaos versus control and divine justice versus compassion. They had this balance that they really believed that happened in the divine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Love. The last one I have is about Enki and the creation of humans. So the story goes that the gods were tired and they didn't want to do physical labor anymore, like tending to the earth and building temples
Same.
and digging canals, that's what I'm saying. So Enki came up with a plan and he mixed clay with the blood of a slain god to create humans. And we were literally made to work for the gods, and we were created as divine servants. But Inky didn't just abandon us, like create us and be like, slaves, go. He was like, no. He taught humanity the arts of civilization and writing, irrigation, magic, and agriculture, and even music and sex. And he became our quiet advocate, like sneaking knowledge to us when other gods wanted to keep it for themselves. And like what's
Mm-hmm.
cool about this, and here's where this play on other religions comes in, is Inky's like Prometheus and Hermes combined, where he's the trickster, he's the teacher and the guardian of sacred knowledge. And you could spin this like into a conversation about whether we're meant to serve something greater or if we've been rebelling against our original divine job ever since.
That's very true.
Right? Because it could go, but
Mm-hmm.
you could make it. Listen, y'all know me and Nicole love to make some arguments, and we could make an argument both ways. I could get some good stuff going for both those.
Well, and it's funny because like I've been thinking about free will. Like people always like to ask, well, why is this? Or why doesn't they step in? Like, especially if you really like believe in God and you're like, why don't they step in? Why do they let like war happen and like all this stuff? And it's like, we have free will.
Well, and if we want to talk about Sumerian wise, maybe Inky's letting us do our thing and holding everybody else back from being like, all right, they're done.
Right?
Flood it.
Flood it.
Flood
We're
it.
flooding it. If you see somebody building a boat,
I see that boat. I am getting on there. Oh, because also I want to know what that looks like. As well as
also,
I want to see what the earth would look like in water. That's weird. It's gonna be Moana.
it's Waterworld.
It's Waterworld. I said Moana, you said Waterworld.
I would hope it was Moana. Well, maybe if we mix like Waterworld with Moana, like it would be the whole like thing. And then we gotta go and put the heart in the goddess. Like, here, have your heart back. We're
Take your
so
heart
sorry.
back in, Lil. Inky is our um what's his name? Maui.
Or Maui, the
Yep.
trickster magic guy.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's what I have on stories. Next I have like stuff
No,
about the
wait, don't
Anunnaki.
you
So
have or are you gonna get to the underworld one?
No, I that's what I was gonna say. That's what I have. I have other stuff that I'm gonna come back with later, but I know you have some more stories to give. So if you would like to give those, I want to hear them, please.
Okay, so the two that I found, one was um where did it go? Oh, here we go. So the tower, I thought it was interesting that the Tower of Babel and Immerkar Zagret. Okay.
Yes.
Yes. So these similar stories are where the king of Yorick orders the construction of a mass zaggurat, a stepped pyramid connected to heaven and earth. And the people spoke one language, but the gods confused their speech and prevented them from completing their project. And then the same thing in Zenos. Hold on, my brain stopped working. Genesis 11, the people of Babel attempted to build a tower of Babel structured meant to reach the heavens. Same thing is where the Godhead confused them so they could not complete their structure. Both stories involved a mass construction intended to connect the divinity, and the divine intended to scatter and confuse the people's languages. The other one was the descent into the underworld. So Inanna descended into the underworld to confront her sister Eshirkesh. Hold on. Eshkagol, something like that. Okay. This symbolizes the cycle of death and rebirth. And Nana strips away her power at each of the seven gates. Now, the seven is important because those are the seven classical planets that we had: Saturn, Jupiter, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. So she had to go through these seven gates, which strips away her powers. And at the end, she dies and is later resurrected. So she goes through a cleansing so that way she can get rid of her old self and then rebirth comes back as a rebirth. This concept is this concept of descent into the underworld echoes in Peter 3:19 to 20, where Jesus is said to have preached to the spirits in prison. The the resurrection also parallels the idea of spiritual renewal and rebirth in the Christianity idolatry. So we have all this thing about going through suffering like Jesus did, dying on the cross, ascending to the underworld, and then being reborn. Um, Also, Inanna had to have a replacement, and she replaced herself with her husband because he did not mourn her when she died.
Yep.
So mourn your wives.
Lest you be cursed to return to the underworld in her place.
In her place. Just so you know.
Literally.
Okay, continue. I am.
Okay, next I want to talk about the Anunnaki because I have lots to say.
Oh,
Because the Anunnaki is a Sumerian council, not aliens.
are you sure?
Yes. It
Are-
was it is in Sumerian mythology. Ancient aliens? No,
No.
we're not aliens. The Anunnaki meaning those, the word means those of royal blood or offspring of Anu. They were a group of deities in the Sumerian pantheon. Now, originally, they were divine judges of the underworld connected with fate, order, and death. You know how you were talking about the seven gates? The Anunnaki was often described as seven gods who served as the council of deities. They were usually called on to decide major divine matters or fates of humanity. And in many myths, the Anunnaki were responsible for maintaining balances between the gods and the mortals as well.
Mhm.
Now, in the descent of Ananna, they were the ones who decided her fate when she tries to leave the underworld. And then in other stories, they decreed destinies upon, or they decreed, mhm. They decree
Uh-huh.
destinies, uphold laws, and represent cosmic justice. So they weren't necessarily good or evil. They were just like powerful, mysterious, and deeply respected in the Sumerian culture. Now, even without the alien spin, the Anunnaki represents hidden forces of destiny, cosmic justice, or wow, cosmic judgment. Don't know how I got justice out of that.
Jays.
They echo that idea that there's a council of beings beyond our understanding, shaping the fate of gods and humans alike. And they reflect how myths evolve and how a group of underworld deities from 4000 BCE can end up in conspiracy culture and be on alien TikToks and conspiracy documentaries. Because this is like already all written in Sumerian culture.
Right.
And it just shows how myths can change and things can change.
Well, it's a whole thing of like telephone. We see it time and time again on the game of telephone. We have no idea what really went on back then because unless I'm reading the tablet, I am getting a version of it,
Yeah.
right? Like we're getting a version of it. We're getting this like not necessarily diluted, but kind of diluted version of it because I mean, that's what we do, right? That's why it's it is important to know your source per se. Um, but also using your discernment and honing that skill and gift that we all inherently have is how you get through all of this. Like, well, I like that, but that sounds like bullshit. You know what I mean? And that's from the same, it could be in the same line, it could be in the same sentence, it could be the same paragraph where you have both true and lie in the same thing. So, but that's your discernment. That's why you have that.
Yeah. And then reading about that, it my thoughts on this so far is it's definitely much more exciting to believe that the Anunnaki is a group of aliens than it is to believe that it's this old group of gods that we have lost their stories on, or like they're gods that were like believed in 6,000 years ago compared to it's a group of aliens trying to help us.
Well, and the funny thing is like, call them what you want to call them. Like, it's like whether the world is flat or the world is round. I realize I fucking don't care. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
as long as we're talking about them, we get what their teachings are and stuff like that. Like, we can argue about like what they are all day long.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like even like Jesus and like where one religion says that he wasn't the son of God and they're still waiting for him and the other one said yes he is. It's like okay. Like
I mean, that could be said for the whole entire podcast today. You know,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I just find it interesting because I did not know any of that. Like, I didn't know that the Anunnaki would even be brought up within the Sumerian pantheon. Like, like it's like finding out like about, Greek pantheon and things you just didn't know was in that either, where it's like that
Yeah.
have that correlation like brings up a lot of questions in my mind where I'm like, huh, interesting. Like
Right.
a good example is one of the gods that I was going to mention that isn't talked about a lot in Sumerian is Namu, or
Hmm.
they call her the primordial sea goddess. But here's the thing, the way that this goddess in my mind correlates so heavily to the Black Madonna is crazy because
Right.
she's one of the oldest Sumerian deities and possibly the first goddess ever recorded in writing. And she birthed on sky and Kai earth.
Hmm.
She's essentially the mother of all the major gods, and she represents primordial chaos. And tell me you haven't heard this before. Primordial chaos, divine potential in the formless waters of the cosmos before creation. Think of her as the
Hmm.
deep ocean of everything before everything, the divine within, or the divine void with a heartbeat.
Exactly. Because but we always know that the divine feminine, the Black Madonna, is always hidden.
Yes,
She's always hidden, right? Like, and it's funny because if she birthed, you said Anshar and Kishtar.
An and Kai, sky and earth,
Okay, so I have Anshar and Kishar. It's probably the same thing. Maybe they like,
shortened it.
right, and it's sky and earth. Anshar is the sky and Kishar is the earth, which what I'm trying to get to really in the long way of things is that that was the parents of Anu, sorry, Anu. So the divine God of gods, the father of all the gods in Samaria was birthed by these two, sky and earth, which was birthed by
None.
her. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's wild. It's wild. I love all of it. Um,
Um, the only other two gods, well, two deities that I have is mhm,
mhm.
Ninhershag, hopefully, meaning Earth Mother. Also called Kai or Nitu in some texts. She's the goddess of fertility, mountains, and childbirth, often seen as the divine womb. She was said to have helped create humanity alongside Enki. And she symbolizes the sacredness of creation and birth, but also the responsibility of motherhood and protection of the land. And sometimes she gets into mystic disputes with Enki, like when he oversteps boundaries of life and death, like literally the mother and the father scenario we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I also have Dumuzi or Tammuz, which is Inanna's lover you were talking about. He is like
Yep.
seasonal death and the resurrection god. And it's Inanna's lover and consort and a shepherd god tied to fertility in the seasonal cycles. And after Inanna returns to from the underworld, Dumuzi is taken in her place, leading to the cycle of death and rebirth. And he represents seasonal dying of vegetation and its rebirth, which is a forerunner to gods like Persephone, Osiris, and even
Right.
Jesus, because his story
Mm-hmm.
is tragic and emotional and very human, and he dies,
Mm-hmm.
returns, dies again, like the land itself.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it was funny because you do see that if she dies and she's the mother, creation, right? And the man is because I have sheep herd, like the herder, the shepherd. So how does this, like, the goddess gives birth, the shepherds, protects this flock, make sure he eats. Do you know what I mean? Like, make sure that if one's lost, he goes and gets them shepherd things, right? Um, and then the cycle repeats itself. So once the cycle goes in and out of death and rebirth, right? Like, this is evolution. This is how, because we go on top of each other. If time goes in a circle and you're going up the ladder every time, this is what we're doing. Not only are we doing it in a broad spect of like human beings from like, and this is the best representation I have, is like, from monkeys to cavemen to whatever, right? Like that's evolution in a broader skin, right? you're doing it on a human level as well as you're like my grandma, my mom, me, Trinity. You can see it's the same person in evolution form to the fact of like you're evolving right now as we speak. So if you and you're a little more control, you're your own God of your own universe where you're really controlling whatever you want to do. Your divine will, like if you started exercising today, you would evolve into building muscle, blah, 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 like all that. Like that's an evolution, right? If I sit down right now and never get back up, my body will evolve into not having as much muscle, being evolved into more of a sitting creature like a tree or like whatever, like that kind of thing. It's the scope of evolution on a broader and a minute way, right?
Agreed. And like what I was gonna say too, which you're leading into this perfectly, is like these stories and these gods and goddesses are just like good echoes of like what we
Hmm.
could be considered like our first attempts of trying to understand like chaos and like honoring the
Right.
earth and the sky and
Right.
understanding ourselves. It's like a good example of like what those first attempts at understanding all of that looked like.
Absolutely. We have no idea. We have no concept of that. Like thinking is, and especially on stuff we don't want to see, like death and carnage and, chaos. Like we like our perfect little organized flower beds, right? Like um we don't want to look or be chaotic. Like we don't get the love from the gods if we don't do that, right?
Right. Right.
So it's it is a separation of divinity if it's we go from one god or goddess. If we go from the cosmic mother to separate herself into two, a male aspect and a female aspect, right? And then they separate, or actually they probably come together and then they separate again. And you have this division coming together, separation, and on top of that, you have death and rebirth, death and rebirth. And the more you do that, the more you learn, the more you see, I guess. I don't know. I think I'm just rambling now.
No, I think that
So,
was well said. Better than
okay.
you thought.
It
Very
was
well
like
said.
thanks, thanks. So these are your Sumerian gods. Again, this is just to. I did, when I first got into ritual magic, I did work with Sumerian gods, and I had, um, like one of my first invoking rituals was the Sumerian gods. Uh, one of the funniest things that happened though. So obviously like time and trickery and all that stuff. I arrived a week early to a wedding that I was doing the hair in. Went all the way to like Detroit and like parked and went into the hotel that I was supposed to be at. And I was like, I haven't gotten any text messages from anybody. Like, we're supposed to start here soon. Like, and finally I go, hey, what are we doing? What room are we in? She goes, it's next week. And I was like, oh, okay.
Mhm. You said, yeah, no, I knew. I was just testing you.
Right? I was like, I was just, I just wanted to make sure I knew where to go. So that's what was funny when I started to invoke the Sumerian gods.
Which is funny because, Enki, now that we know, one of the big threes is pretty prevalent in this realm, I guess you could say, compared to realms outside of walking on Earth.
Yeah, yeah.
Fun trickery.
It's fun trickery. It's fine.
It
You know,
wasn't
you get
harmful.
no. It was actually like you're like, am I losing my mind? But then you're like, oh, but I am doing this. So it's almost a way to show you that something is happening and they are real in your own time. Because I'm so much of a skeptic that like I'm like, this isn't real. I'm not doing anything. I'm just in here calling out some names in a room by myself, being a weirdo, right? Like,
Yeah.
and it's a way to show you that it is moving something, shifting time
It's
in a
happening.
way. Right,
Something's
right,
happening.
right. It is, it's happening. It's happening.
So last week we did tell you guys that we were going to be doing the thing with Trinity. Obviously, as Nicole said in the beginning, it didn't work out because she had exams. She is graduating. Yay, Trinity. Yay, Trinity, go Trinity. But she'll be on the next episode. Then we'll be talking Temple of Satan versus Church of Satan, which I'm very excited about because Trinity's really well researched on it. And it's exciting to hear her talk about things that she's well researched on.
Absolutely, absolutely. It'll be nice because like she'll have less stress on her because when she gets through all of the exam stuff that she needs to get through and graduated, um, we're on to the next
Yeah.
college in the fall.
Yay, Trinity!
Yay, Trinity!
Everybody say yay, Trinity. Yay.
Yay.
Well, do you have anything else for the peoples?
Nope, that's the peoples were on drugs and I drank the people, and now I'm a wizard.
Favorite show ever. Well, thanks for joining us in this realm. We'll have more realms coming up in the near future. And have a good couple weeks till we talk to you guys next.
Happy spring.
Happy spring! All right, bye.
Bye.